All right, Tony Brackett's back in your life. Taylor behind the controls. Juju Gotti, not here today, but hopefully we'll get him back for the championship game preview. I want to give an early update on my bracket here on the show because obviously I was in the 96th percentile. The only remaining team I have left that is still alive for me to get points is my potential champion, the UConn Huskies, which I feel really good about, Taylor. Like, UConn, out of all the teams, looks to be the team that is in the driver's seat when it comes to not only getting to the championship game, but winning the whole thing outright.
And if you have to have one team left,
that's the one I want.
The champion.
Yes. I want to have the champion, even though a lot of my points are gone out the window. I had Tennessee. We're gonna go down all the Elite Eight games, kind of give you a couple nuggets from here or there. But I was really high on Tennessee. I thought Connect was incredible. He played amazing in that game, but it seems like Zach Eady was a little bit too much for the Volunteers. Again, we'll get to all the different games. But I think the most important aspect of this tournament is what we're seeing from NC State. I don't think there's another story. Like, the UConn angle is cool, right? You're going to have, hopefully, a back-to-back champion in my case. Hopefully. Another back-to-back champion, which hasn't happened since 06-07 Gators. That's a cool story. The Duke thing with McCain, the TikTok, like, you had some sort of hype behind that. Zach Eady with Purdue. A lot of other teams, you look across the Elite Eight, like, was there any juice for you, Taylor, like for Illinois, Clemson, Bama, Tennessee? Was there any juice whatsoever with those teams?
Not so much, especially the Alabama-Clemson matchup, because I was in LA for that regional, and the entire storyline going into that was everybody wanted to see Carolina versus Arizona, the RJ Davis versus Caleb Love, where Caleb Love transfers from Carolina. And then you got two upsets, and Alabama going to their first Final Four now, and a Clemson team that really was probably on the bubble for most of it. So I think you are right, where a lot of the storylines was more about the teams that didn't make it instead of the teams that did. And
we talk about the fact that we like seeing upsets until a certain point, because now we're at that certain point where, man, it would have been really nice to have UNC, to have blue blood teams in the Elite Eight going into the Final Four, where we can look across the brackets and be like, all right, we know for certain this is going to be a good game. I feel like we have a little bit of that. Purdue's obviously been a household name with Zach Eady, with just the fight that they've always had getting into the tournament, having a really good team, and then always choking it away. They had their chance, and let's start there. Let's start Purdue beating Tennessee. I had Tennessee with the upset, but I've always picked against Purdue. Like, as far as I can remember. I've never taken Purdue to get into the Final Four, never taken them to win a national championship. They're just not that team, right? Even from, what was old boy that had like 7 knee injuries in a row? A big guy for Purdue.
Hummel, maybe?
Yes. Robbie Hummel, is that his name? Robbie Hummel played 19 years at Purdue. Every season was like comeback player of the year because he had torn his ACL the season prior. Respect to him. But it was always a team that you could be like, I know I'm going to pencil them in for an upset, because that's just the way that they do it, right? And it feels like they've got the right mixture of guys led by a guy who's just way bigger than everybody else. It's almost like when you have that one big kid in middle school who's just like hit the growth spurt already. So he's like 6'1" in middle school in like 8th grade, but everybody else is still about like 5'7".
There's no confusion of the gameplay.
Right. It's like, get the ball to this guy. He's going to dribble the ball 3 times, back to the basket, spin around, hook shot. Nobody can contest it because his arm is at the rim every time he shoots. It's almost like when you have a creative player and you look at him and like, he's too big. And I said that on the show the other day, Zach Eady's too big to be good. And I know Yao Ming's 7'6". I get Manute Bol was 7'7" or whatever he is. I get Gobert's 7'3", 7'4", somewhere in that neighborhood. Wembanyama 7'5" or whatever. It just, the game is so ugly for Zach Eady. The game was exciting back and forth, Purdue and Tennessee. Connect was amazing. I thought that he was one of the better players in the tournament, and he showed. I think he hit like 5 or 6 threes in a row. He was all over the court. But when you have a guy who's 7'5" and he shoots 22 free throws, it's really hard to stop.
That's the bigger problem with Zach Eady. It's the way he goes about getting his points, where the games are officiated. You have to call fouls because people are just draped over him.
They're literally hanging on his elbows. They're like trying to stop him. They just hang on the elbows to try. He lifts them up and then shoots a hook shot.
And the refs get put in a bad spot there because nobody wants to see somebody shoot 22 free throws. But you also have to call the game for him the same way you're calling the game for everybody else. It's just you don't want to see somebody shoot 22 free throws and half their points are coming from the free throw line.
He ended up with 39 and like 16 boards, I think. The game is not aesthetically pleasing. It's a lot of the comparisons where Stugotz loves to say that nobody likes to watch Jokic. I can guarantee you, I would rather watch Jokic 1,000 times over than watch Zach Eady play. No disrespect to Purdue. Love Zach Eady. He even brought some fire post-game, which I thought was great because a lot of guys, not that they don't give this kind of fire, but I don't feel like I've ever seen it from him personally. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Zach, an unbelievable performance by this team, but by you specifically. What was your mentality in this game?
They thought they knew us, man. They thought they knew what we had in our hearts. I promise you they did. We're winners. That's what we do.
I mean, technically, it's not what you do.
In the regular historically season, has not been what you do.
In the regular season, it's what you do. But then come tournament time, this is the first time they've reached the Final Four since 1980.
And that sound from Eady is the sound of somebody who's heard that they've lost to North Texas, they lost to St. Peter's, they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson last year. That's a guy who's heard for 3 straight seasons as a 2-time National Player of the Year. Hey, you're probably going to lose the first weekend.
Right, you're not good enough to get to where you think you are. Like, yeah, you're National Player of the Year. Yeah, you're incredible. Yeah, you're bigger than everybody else. Bad news, buddy. A team that has a peacock for a mascot is going to beat you in the first weekend. Hate to be that guy, but imagine, like you said, he's seen all of that on Twitter, on Instagram, on everything, and it feels like there was just a release of, see, finally, you guys see who I really am. 22 shots from the free throw line. I don't know if I've ever seen him take a jump shot. You know how we talked about Jack Golke, who had taken 8 2-point shots the season? Like season-long stats were 8 2-point shots. I'd like to see if somebody can chart, maybe Tom Haverstraw, maybe somebody who works in that realm, can chart how many jumpers, how many jump shots with 2 hands on the ball, not in the paint, Zach Eady has taken in his career at Purdue. Is it more or less than Jack Golke's taken 2-point shots?
The only shot that's not going to be right inside that like very small arc is like he gets a rebound. There's like 1 second on the clock. He turns, he flings it.
One-handed though, not a jump shot.
No, very clearly not a jump shot. But you're going to see some shot attempts from the other side of the court and be like, where are those coming from? That's the only scenario he's not just shooting that little hook shot.
It was a really good game. I thought a lot of good games outside of the obvious one of UConn beating Illinois. We can get into that one really quick. UConn just looks a cut above everybody else, and they did so last year. I thought their guard play last year was excellent. And Klingon, who we had on the show, really good defender. He's been, would you argue and say he's one of their better players, one of their best players?
Yeah.
Newton is their best player, but it feels like Klingon has a defensive edge to him that the other guys are kind of more scorers, but he has that presence inside, again, being 7'2". It allows you to kind of deflect a lot of shots. They went on a 30-0 run. I mean, what can you say about a team that is complete from top to bottom?
Yeah, and all UConn's players score more than 10 points per game. So when you're talking about like who is UConn's best player, that's the scariest thing about this team, where like a couple guys have off nights, but somebody else is going to be right there to pick up the slack, and you really never know who on their team is going to go for that 20-point night. And that's really what's kind of made this tournament UConn or the field, because UConn is as deep as anybody, and their talent is just as good as anybody else.
And now they take on Bama, who beat Clemson. As a ACC guy, as you are, obviously big UNC guy, when you look across the landscape of the bracket, you see NC State, you see Duke, you see Clemson. ACC stood tall, stood on business during the tournament. Yet Looking through my notes here.
Are you looking for a team?
Looking for. Let's see here. UNC not there. When you look across and see a Clemson team that you guys beat, when you see an NC State team that you guys beat, when you see a Duke team that you guys beat, and you guys are nowhere to be found, like, how does that make you feel? Because you've been preaching to the masses, hey, ACC basketball is good. Take these teams seriously. You've been talking about NC State since the beginning.
Yeah. I've spent all year championing for the ACC, telling the Seth Davises, hey, this conference is a lot better. Joe Lunardi saying 2-3 bid league, and I'm like, no. Every time you put these teams in March, they perform. And how do I get rewarded? I have to sit there and watch NC State versus Duke for a trip to the Final Four on the line.
Two teams that you've beaten.
Yes. And two of Carolina's most hated rivals, with Carolina already being eliminated by Alabama. And I kind of just had to sit there and
just eat it.
This is the consequences of my own actions. I championed for the ACC, and now I have to live with NC State being the team that represents the ACC.
Did you feel like Clemson would have been, because obviously that was part of UNC's bracket, Bama beat Clemson. If all things are equal and UNC Clemson, how would you have felt about that game? Is that a no-doubter for you?
Yeah. Alabama was almost a no-doubter too, because Alabama profiles the same way like a Kentucky team, where they have a elite offense but a defense that can have off nights. And then in the Carolina-Alabama game, they were just trading baskets back and forth, playing like a frantic pace, and I was like, we're playing Alabama's game right now. Nate Oates is dragging us into the deep water, and we do not.
I don't know if we can swim out here. That's a tough fandom thing to look at, because you're like, damn, dude, like, it's just so close yet so far. Funny enough, we were looking at the state of college basketball. It's in a weird spot, right? A lot of complaints are made that the game is lacking stars, that the men's game has kind of taken a back seat to the women's game, in the fact that the women's stars are more, I don't want to say marketable, but they're more known than they are in the men's game, right? And you're looking across and you're like, who is the no doubt household name when you look across the teams that were left in the Elite Eight? Who's the guy that you're looking at saying, this guy everybody knows?
It's probably Zach Eady.
Your most boring player? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like a 6'5" wing who's just making incredible plays, shoots from the outside, can slash, can dunk, can make plays. It's Zach Eady, who hasn't shot a jump shot again since I don't know when. Maybe he's never shot a jump shot before in his life. I don't know. I have no visual evidence that he's ever shot a jump shot ever. In the women's game, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese. Again, stylistically different. Angel Reese, more of a post player. Caitlin Clark looks like Steph Curry. Paige Becker's kind of the same. Like, you have these names in the women's game that you're lacking in the men's game. And the reason why, I feel like, is transfer portal, 1. 2, the NCAA has really stopped turning these project players and the competition of NCAA into NBA. The NCAA has done a bad job. I think NIL's fixing it a little bit, but has done a bad job of dissuading people from already making that jump into the NBA not being ready. And that's stuff that you saw back in the day, where you would have guys be 3-4 years in a program that could lead to a Georgetown, a Providence, a Florida, Ohio State, whomever, right? And we have a graphic, we're going to throw it on the screen, of where guys started their careers into where they are now. And we have the Elite Eight teams. And as you can see, you can kind of figure out, okay, I know UConn's got a couple guys, Illinois' got a couple guys, Clemson's got 3 of the 5 starters who were Clemson born and raised. Bama's got 1 guy. Duke, you look down, the whole way down, all Duke. But then you look at Purdue, 1 of the 4 not, Tennessee, 1 of the 4 not. And then you look at NC State. And it took me a while to be like, what team was this? 1 guy for Virginia, Stanford, whatever that Hawk team is. What was the Hawk team?
Illinois State.
Illinois State, come on. And Mizzou.
Winthrop, too.
Winthrop. Taylor, as you look across what's happening in college basketball right now, is there a star problem? Because now Zach Eady's gone, right? Presumably. Obviously, you've got freshmen coming in, the Cooper Flags of the world, who one of the biggest recruits of all time, right? Already talking about how he's the most known high school player of all time. I've seen that from The Athletic. Guys, Zion Williamson. Remember, we couldn't go on social media without seeing Zion Williamson dunk over a guy who's 5'9" from Spartanburg, South Carolina. Is there a star problem in the NCAA?
For sure, because you look at the first team All-Americans this year. It's R.J. Davis, it's Zach Eady, it's Dalton Knecht, Tristan Newton, Jamal Shedd. None of those people are even coming close to the star power and the name recognition that you have with somebody like Caitlin Clark. And when you talk about somebody like Cooper Flagg next year, that man has so much pressure on him coming into...
He literally has to save men's basketball in the
and Duke. Maybe John Shire.
He has to save them because they don't have anybody else. Is there another recruit that can come in and have as much pressure as Cooper Flagg does right now?
No. Because of the Duke element, too. Because now you're looking at the teams in that triangle. Hubert Davis has made it to a Final Four. Kevin Keats, somehow...
Against all odds. Against all odds.
The true Cinderella has made it to a Final Four. And Duke is kind of sitting there with John Shire like, hey, you're preseason top 2 team every year. You have top 5 recruiting classes every year. You're on the clock.
Clock is ticking for Shire. Let's get to that last game. I know this is the game that everybody wanted to talk about just because of the big guy, DJ Burns. And everybody likes to see Duke lose, right? I think there's a special place, even if you don't care about the ACC, even if you're whatever on college basketball in the men's game. It feels like everybody loves seeing Duke lose. And I don't know if that's just a byproduct of all those Duke teams in the past and everybody just loving to hate on the Duke brand, but it feels like everybody was just waiting for DJ Burns. They were like, please, 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 God, let DJ Burns have a great game. Comes out 13 for 19, 29 points, looks the part. When you see him back to the basket, and you're like, this guy is not the hero we needed, but the hero we deserved. Did I say that right? I think I said it wrong.
I think you said it backwards.
He's not the hero we deserved, the hero we needed.
Yeah. It almost sounds better the first way.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't need him. We had other players. But then March happened. Everybody stopped watching football, turned their eyes over here, and was like, wait a second. Dude, there's a big guy who can go back to the basket and has a nice little floater game with left and right hand? He was dragging Kyle Filipowski like a wet noodle. Like an absolute, like, you know, a foam pool noodle? It's like DJ Burns had him on his back, like, excuse me, going this way. Excuse me. And then he would just leave him open. Filipowski, like, didn't think he had a J, didn't watch the film breakdown. Sweet little lefty J. DJ Burns, to me, I think the most exciting player. His stock has risen so high. NFL GMs are saying, like, you know what? Wait a second. I think we can get this guy on the D-line somewhere.
Offensive tackle, the way he moves his feet.
OT, get him as a left tackle. He's what, 6'9", 270? I feel like that's being generous.
Listed at 275. He's not. he's just very clearly not.
He's $3 bills, right?
Easily
$3 bills. You got that guy 6'9", and with tennis shoes, he's probably around like 6'7" and a half, right? That extra inch and a half with his hoop shoes. You get the guy on the outside. You get the guy rushing from the outside.
It doesn't make sense how well he moves.
Plug in the A gap. I mean, imagine the guy as a nose tackle. What are we doing? With all that, one of the more electric players that we've seen in March, the gimmicky stuff works in March, right? The big guy that has no reason to be out there, but just giving everybody the business. The small guard. We talk about Alabama, right? The kid Sears from Alabama, where that's what the legend of March is about. The one guy on your team that you have that spark of, you know what? Wait a second. There's something here. And then in March, that 8-game run or 9-game run of trying to get out from the conference tournament into the real tournament and making a run is just a really special time. So I'm glad that Duke went down. Not that I care either way. I don't have a dog in the fight about it. I like seeing, if we could put it on the screen, I like seeing DJ Burns telling him, all right, see ya. You guys are done. The throat slash. Get out of here, dorks. That's great. I love that.
And the craziest thing with this NC State team, they've had this winner go home mentality now for 9 straight games.
It's hard to do that, man.
Where they had to win every game in the conference tournament. Kevin Keatts was left for dead. Like, if they lose that first game to Louisville, he's getting fired.
Right.
And now we're talking about this team going to the Final Four.
And potentially
It's one of the most improbable runs I've ever seen. And my Carolina group chats were so conflicted because it's Duke, it's NC State. Which one do you want to see win? I was of the opinion that I wanted to see Duke win because somebody compared it to it's like a credit card that you have $700 on this credit card right now, but if NC State keeps winning, that bill could get up to like $6,000 real quick, and it's spiraling out of control. You kind of wanted to cut it off because Carolina Duke, they're kind of equals. Duke's been to Final Fours before. NC State, they haven't been in this position since 1983 with Jimmy V. This was just a down bad weekend for your boy, man.
So what? I mean, you told me something in confidence that I'm going to betray your confidence and say it out on the air. That you had something in a shopping cart. You were like, you know what helps me feel better is retail therapy. When my teams are not doing well or something happened that I don't like, maybe buy something, maybe a little material possession that can kind of ease my mind off the things that I just saw. What did you have in your cart that you didn't buy but you were this close to buying?
So I'm scrolling in the airport at LAX.
Sad, by the way, because UNC had just lost.
Yep.
Then you saw, Bama beat Clemson in a game that UNC could have absolutely won.
Yep.
And you're sitting at a sad terminal in LAX.
My flights to Phoenix for next weekend have already been canceled at this point. I'm scrolling, and I'm just moved into a new apartment. I'm like, I need some furniture still to decorate.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling on Fanatics. 2017 Final Four courtside chair. With the coupon, it was down to $172, and I put it in my cart, and as I'm checking out, I'm going, the hell do I need this chair for?
Can you imagine, that's just part of your dinner set? Like, at your dining room table, it's just a chair from 2017? What color was it, black?
It's a black chair with the Final Four logo. It's a good-looking chair, but I'm like, where
am I going to put this?
Yes, exactly. And
you can put it at your desk, though. You know how you have your desk with your computer and whatever, and, you can put it there instead of an office chair.
It's not like it was from the Final Four. This is just the company making
just a replica one? Oh, dude. I thought it was the one from the actual Final Four.
No, $175. Few left, it says. They always get you.
They always get you. All right. We got the Final Four set. Where are my papers here? I'm trying to find my notes. We got the Final Four set. As you can see, Purdue, NC State, and we've got UConn, Alabama. I feel like we're safe enough to say UConn's going to beat Alabama. Famous last words, right? But it just feels like UConn is an overwhelming team inside, outside, defensively, offensively. Just feels like nobody's really on their level when you look at the landscape of men's hoops. It's just not there. In my opinion, they're going to repeat. I think they're good enough to repeat. I feel like they're going to beat Alabama. Again, we've talked about it. Last week, I said that Alabama's defense was good. Did I say Alabama's defense was good? Or did I say that, it was Iowa State's defense that I said was bad, but it was one of the best ones.
Number one, yeah.
Right. So Alabama's defense for sure is bad, and they're playing one of the better offensive teams in the country with UConn. I feel like
one of the best two-way teams. UConn's a top 5 offense, top 5 defense.
Safe to say we can pencil UConn.
I'm penciling.
The more intriguing game, Zach Eady versus DJ Burns. How does this go down? A guy who's just so much bigger than everybody else against a guy who can get his way craftily, creatively around bigger dudes and score across, in the lane, can also score from a little bit outside of that lane. Does he have a chance to have a special night against Zach Eady, or do we finally see all right, the guys that are just better, the better horses are going to win this one?
The biggest worry for NC State would be DJ Burns getting into foul trouble because early in the Duke game, he got into foul trouble. Duke was only up 6 at halftime, and they were still able to have that amazing second half when Burns comes back. So against Eady, I think that's the biggest concern. And this kind of goes back to the point with that Carolina group chat where all the Carolina fans I knew wanted NC State to win because they were like, Duke has a better chance to beat Purdue. And I'm like, guys, you have not been watching the past 8 or so games with this NC State team. The level of confidence that group is playing with is something that you rarely see, and they do almost have that team of destiny type mentality when they're playing. So I think if they beat them, it's just going to continue that destiny type thing where it's like, how did they beat them? We don't know, but they're moving on, because you saw it in the Marquette game where Marquette has one of the worst shooting nights ever, and NC State is just finding ways to make just enough plays.
Good teams find ways to win. And it almost feels like Keats should take, what's the big guy, Middlebrooks? The big white guy, Middlebrooks? Just throw him on Eady. Let him do whatever he's got to do. Keep Burns. Do they play them together? Kind of 4-5, Middlebrooks and Burns?
It's Burns and Diarra start. Diarra's the transfer from Missouri. Right. And then Middlebrooks comes in normally for whichever one of Diarra and Burns gets in foul trouble.
Let Middlebrooks be the meat shield. Just throw him against Zach Eady. Just have him hang from his elbows. Just kind of hit him in the kidney with an elbow once in a while. Again, the kidney's probably looking like, I don't know how tall Middlebrooks is. Looks about 6'10", right? Ish. That's still, try to do the math here, 7'5". He's still 7 inches bigger than Middlebrooks, who's 6'10", which is wild. But all you need is a quick chicken wing to the kidney when he's backing you down. Just one of these right here. Look. Right to the kidney, dude. Anytime he shoots on a jumper. You know what? And again, I don't condone violence, but I will say this. The first time that Eady gets the ball, I send a double team. And if he goes up for a shot, I put an elbow into his chest. Flagrant foul. I don't care. But we're setting the tone early. You think you're going to come in here and shoot hook shots? Absolutely not.
That's something a dad would say at a game. Because I had that same thought where Eady's coming down the court.
I am
just let him know you're there.
Exactly.
Just let him know you're there.
Exactly right. Like maybe like a Kurt Rambis like clothesline. I don't know. I'm getting my guy who's at the end of the bench and be like, Coach Tony, why are we starting this guy who's at the end of the bench? He's 6'11", gangly, doesn't know what he's doing. Why do we have him starting? I'm going to tell you why. First play of the game. Eady's going to get that ball. This man is going to get kicked out of this game because I'm going to have him bull rush like Kobe did to Pau Gasol, right? I'm going to run through that motherfucker's chest. First play of the game, Eady, I want you to rip through Eady right now. Boom, smacks him. He's done his job. They kick him out. I act upset. How could you do that? Oh, my God. Secretly, we get back in the huddle. All right, game time now.
That kid gets a statue, too.
Absolutely. Especially if you win a championship. Hang that guy's jersey in the rafters, dude. NC State, Purdue, UConn, Alabama. We are super, super excited for this matchup, and we'll have Tony Brackets after that previewing the championship game, who I think we're both in agreement. We're looking at UConn, Purdue in a big-time matchup, right?
Audio audience, I was nodding.
He was nodding his head. What I want to do more than anything is just have Middlebrooks just hit a chicken wing against Zach Eady in the chest, in the kidney, somewhere that you let him know, hey, I'm here to play. One of those right there.